everyone. This is another interview with people from the Bay Area who are in tech. And I got today near me Abbas, who's interning at Tesla. I'm laughing because I always don't know how to pronounce his name. He's interning at Tesla and he's also a grad student at MIT. And he has very cool stories to share. So let's begin by telling them a bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. As Bianca said, my name is Abbas. She said it very well.
Okay.
And I'm interning at Tesla on the autopilot team. I'm a software engineer there, and more full-time, I suppose, I'm a graduate student at MIT studying robotics. So in my spare time, I like to read books, rock climb, write code for a few small projects I'm working on, and I suppose that's like short intro to me.
Okay, and what's your background? How did you start? What did you start with? Did you go to university? You went to university because
I did. I did. So after high school, I went to the University of Rochester in sort of the frozen part of New York to study chemical engineering. After that, I worked at a heat transfer startup called Chill Flux in the Bay Area. And I did that for about a year. And then for 2 years following that, I worked in manufacturing and supply chain management at Fitbit.
What was the first company doing?
The first
Heat
company,
transfer?
they took the idea of a heat pipe, which
Mhm.
is a way of cooling down electronics typically very efficiently. They took the idea of a heat pipe, and we developed a device that was about 350 microns thick, and was still a functioning loop heat pipe. So we just miniaturized heat pipe technology.
Oh wow, that sounds very cool.
Yeah, it was super interesting. I
Oh, is
learned
it
a
used
lot.
in any devices that we're currently using?
So it was sold to a large field programmable gate manufacturer, a
Okay.
FPGA manufacturer, and we don't know what they're doing with it. Maybe
Okay.
nothing. Maybe a whole bunch of stuff. We don't know.
Okay, I see. And what exactly are you doing at Tesla? How does your background fit into what you're doing at Tesla?
Yeah. So, um, as you definitely know, like as a software engineer, it's not necessarily so important what your background is, as long as you can be clever and work on problems and put in the right amount of effort, right? So what does fit very well into my work at Tesla is my background in robotics. So working on the planning and control team, we're developing algorithms to help help Teslas drive autonomously, right? And so that is essentially a mobile robotics problem. So there are a ton of questions about machine vision, perception, and then all of that information about from vision and perception gets driven into the planning and control team to develop ways of driving the car intelligently, right?
Okay.
Without
Yeah.
hitting people, getting people from
Mhm.
A to B safely, and also just ideally making the world a little bit more environmentally friendly along the way if we can. So the big element of my background that contributes to my work at Tesla is my robotics understanding, as well as just my affinity for math. People are super into math nerds there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I like those kinds of people. And how did you learn to code if you were doing robotics before? Did you have courses in university that you learned from, or did you learn on your own mostly?
Yeah, so I started coding far before I started studying robotics. I only started studying robotics actually in the last 2 years. I started learning to code back in high school, which is a large number of years ago, and that was mostly through online resources, a handful of books, some online coursework, and then just seeking out some projects to work on. One of the first, probably the very first thing I did was build a nice little calculator. Excuse me, a nice little calculator, and then I started working on. I was taking this economics class at the time. Started figuring out how to get my economics homework done in code as opposed to doing it by hand because mental math was a struggle at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and also I need some way to make it interesting. So those are some of the first things I started out working on. But yeah, it just kind of continued from there.
And why did you go into chemical
Engineering?
engineering?
Yeah,
If you
so the reason for that, despite my interest in coding way back then, was sort of because I was unsure of what I really want to work on in my long-term career. I was thinking that, if I go to university and I want to be an engineer, um, are there really these clear distinctions between like chemical engineers, electrical engineers, or mechanical engineers? Maybe in industry is kind of what I thought, kind of naively. In industry, they all probably just work together, right? So let me go study the one that I find most immediately interesting, and then if I want to do the other ones, I can just end up doing them later if I want to. And so at the time, I was really excited about this organic chemistry class I was taking, and so I was like, I'll just do this, and I end up doing a major in chemical engineering, and then a minor in computer science, and then another minor in math.
Okay, and you ended up working at Tesla after your journey.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So I started working at Tesla after I finished my master's at MIT. I'm going back in a few weeks to go finish my PhD, hopefully. And yeah, the way I got there was just by contacting some people I knew who work at Tesla, and then applying online, talking to recruiters, and the whole process.
Was that the only company you applied after finishing your master's?
That is, I applied to Tesla, and I also applied to a handful of other autonomous driving companies. So I looked at Zenuity and Optimus Ride, Toyota, a handful of others. I actually didn't reach out to Waymo.
Why?
I don't know. Why didn't I do that? I think by the time, like, honestly, it was within like 2 weeks of me starting to apply that I got my offer, so I just like stopped looking.
Makes sense. And what were the interviews like? What was the whole process like for you?
Yeah, so it was surprisingly fast, but there were a large number of interviews. Overall, I was interviewing for 2 different jobs at Tesla, and I got interviewed 3 times for each of those positions. The first interview was like just, hey, what do you like to do for fun? What's your story, boss? And just tell us like some anecdotes about this or that. The next round interview was a little bit more technical. I had to do a small coding portion where they asked me to do some really basic things like code-wise in Python and C++, like reversing strings and stuff like that. Like really surprisingly easy. I was shocked. And then they asked me a bunch of very rigorous questions about math. So math, they asked me, well, not explicitly math, but like control theory. Oh. Yeah. There's like, what is 2 plus 2? No, minus x. No, they asked me about control theory, some of the sort of foundational ideas in control theory optimization, and some basic regression techniques is what they sort of like quizzed me on. They gave me a couple of situations, like let's say you have a vehicle and let's say it's a Tesla, and then you're trying to estimate like how fast are the cars in the left lane going, and whether or not you should go into the left lane. What techniques would you start thinking about to address that sort of problem? And then there was this whole long thing, and that was sort of how the last round interview was for the software engineering role.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah.
I would imagine to be more coding if you're a software engineer, but it makes sense to be a lot of math as well.
I'd say like because the team that I work on is doing very like application level programming. Most of the work that we do is thinking up the algorithms that we implement, more so than actual like intense elements of software engineering. Like we, should be well versed in that. Everyone should be, but I'd say the bulk of the work that we do is conceptualizing algorithms.
Okay, and for someone who applies at Tesla, how would you advise them to prepare beforehand? Or can you prepare beforehand if you don't know about control theory, for example? Can you?
Well, so if you don't know about control theory, perhaps the planning and control team is not the best team for you, right? Because that's kind of what we do. But for any role at Tesla, I'd say that what Tesla's got a very distinctive culture, and that culture like really highly values doing things more than knowing theory. It's values like having been through the fire and like come out the other side, like having worked on intense applied projects that also involve some theoretical depth, but are more about the outcome of the project and about what you contributed as opposed to what you potentially know. So my advice to anyone who's interested in working at Tesla is complete a bunch of projects, make a portfolio that you can show these projects off in, and be familiar with what the work that you would be doing on the team that you're interested in might look like. So if you're applying to the vision team, maybe have completed a number of computer vision projects, a few like machine learning algorithms under your belt, and apply them to something that you care about, something that's interesting, something that you can talk about and show off.
Did you have any projects that were applied to control theory?
Yes. So I had my research project, which was controlling a redundant robotic arm, and a redundant parallel mechanism robotic arm, and then I had worked on a few mobile robot projects. In my current project, it's just a little pet project that recently got working, is this mobile robot that has a bunch of aerosol color sprays, and what it does is it drives around on flat surfaces and can draw images with extremely high fidelity on the ground.
Wow.
So you like set it down in an area about the size of this room, and it will draw a mural the size of this room based on a picture that you take.
Wow.
And
did you test it?
Yeah.
At
So
home?
so I have a lab at school,
Okay.
and so we just make it draw a bunch of stuff on the lab floor.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty cool.
What did you draw?
So
What
first,
was this first drawing?
the first drawing was a circle that looked
okay.
mostly like a blob, but over time we refined it more and more, and then the most like intricate thing it's been able to draw has been a picture of. Do you know what a Turner's cube is? It's
No.
like kind of it's sort of a sculpture that you can make on a metal working tool called a lathe. It's called a turner's tool because lathes are used for turning. You should Google what that
I'll
is.
Google.
It's this beautiful thing, and we just like took an image of that we found online, and we sent it to our system. It broke it down to find only the hard lines using a set of Huff transforms, and then it drew those hard lines. So it's like a wireframe type drawing of a Turner's cube, and it looks super cool.
I can't imagine what the Turner's cube looks like, but I'll
Just
definitely
Google
search
it later.
for it.
Google it. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm a big fan. They're beautiful things.
Pause the video and Google it.
Yes, just check that out right now. It's critically important. It is.
Yes. And what are you thinking of applying it to, the robot that draws on the floor?
Yeah, so at first it was just a project for me to sort of refine some of the ideas that I know about in control and perception and some computer vision type stuff. But now we got a little team together, and what we're planning on doing is just in the short run working with cities and event management companies to do advertising on the ground, or do like large scale signage, or do on sports fields they have like logos drawn. If we like make the wheels a little bit more robust, then we can have it like move over like lawns and things, and then draw like logos or all sorts
On
of
the
stuff.
grass.
Yeah, on the grass.
That
Wouldn't that
would
be
be
cool?
cool.
Like
Yeah.
they have that like golf courses, they have it in sports arenas. You could even like redo the lines on a football field or something like that with this sort of technology. Because really the technology itself is a high fidelity localization as well as an intelligent path planner that doesn't distort the image as errors accumulate.
Yeah, you have to be very precise when drawing something like that.
Right. And so that's like what the interesting elements of the problem are, and the applications are like I said, it's just a pet project. We haven't dug into those as well as we perhaps should. We're at the point with our prototype that I think we can begin the process though.
Yeah, and you're very excited about it.
Oh yeah, it's so fun. It's
Yeah.
like such a cool thing, right? I mean,
I would be.
yeah, it's like it's a great thing to work on. I like work on that in my spare time with a few of my buddies, like so it's a good group of friends working on it, and there's such interesting problems to solve, and when you put it on the ground and like run a test, it feels so cool.
I bet. Okay, I want to see it one. Hopefully we'll see it on the football field.
Maybe. Fingers
Drawing.
crossed. More likely we'll see it in a YouTube video. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm very curious about what the job at Tesla feels like, what the office feels like, what the general atmosphere is there, and so
Right.
on.
So Tesla is pretty secretive, so I gotta be a little hush-hush about the details. But
Okay.
I can tell you about working there. It is just incredible how many intelligent people surround you all the time. I'm sure it's the same experience here at Google, but working at Tesla is incredible because everyone is such an excellent resource for you, and they're all so willing to help you out. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know when I started this internship, and around every corner there's someone there to help you out with those things, and there's a lot of like high performing individuals there, people that will challenge themselves to and challenge themselves, and also expect a similar like challenge of people on their team to get projects done. People will be there late into the night, and they'll be working hard on interesting
Oh, wow.
problems. And like I'll be going back there after this, and it's dark out.
You'll be going
And
back.
I will be indeed.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so it's really nice from the a perspective of like the people I work with. Then the office is like a very open office like atmosphere. There are all these standing desks, and you sit usually with your team in like an aisle of like open desk space. I actually, because of some sort of happenstance, whatever was going on with the desks, I sit very close to Elon Musk, like super, super close to him.
That's very
little
cool.
intimidating, right? Is
Is he
cool?
ever there though?
Sometimes he comes in a few days a week. He's got a lot of stuff going on to meet with the teams that he like is like kind of waiting on the most. And I've been in a handful of meetings with him, which has been really cool. I like him. He's a really, really nice guy. There's a very like flat atmosphere at Tesla, in that people, even if they're like interns like myself, just a wee little intern, our ideas are taken seriously, and we're given like real responsibility once we prove that we're not incompetent. And so that is something I really, really like about being at Tesla as well. In addition to like everyone being there to help you out, they will give you real things to do, and they'll like take your opinion into account, even if you're like many levels beneath them. And also, there are not many levels. There's just like me, my manager, the VP, and then there's Elon, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I've got a lot of impact over the product, and I feel like I can really work towards what Tesla is like working on. And that's why I'm like okay with going back to the office after this, because the problems I'm addressing are cool. The people I'm working on them with are fun and intelligent, and challenge me. And also like I feel like I'm doing something like cool, like it's going to help the world.
And also the office is probably not gonna be empty.
Oh yeah, also everyone else is there too, so how could I not be there?
Yeah, I know I went to the office at Google at 10 p.m. just because I went to the gym or something. And it's pretty empty, like people go home usually. I mean, it's most companies
Right. I
are
mean,
like that.
Tesla also like it's not like every day you're just there until like the dead of night. It's just that this happens to be a somewhat intense period, especially for me. Like I'll be spending some later days because this is my last. Basically I just have a week and a half left, so I need to like get my stuff out the door. So I'm also like spending a little bit extra time there, but yeah, it's an intense time for the autopilot team. Yeah.
Okay, I have a personal curiosity. A friend mentioned recently that we were talking about Teslas and in comparison to other cars that are bad for the environment, and he actually said that the manufacturing process of Tesla batteries is very polluting, and it's very bad for the environment. It's like having a car that runs continuously for 30 years or something. And I was like, I don't know anything about it. Do you know anything about it? Do you think
I do not know anything about that. I mean, I know that batteries do like involve using some like intense metals and stuff, but I would be very, very surprised if Tesla is not like handling that process with a lot of care for the environment, because it's like sort of ingrained in the culture of like everyone at Tesla that like we're doing this for this whole purpose of sustainability. So I don't know the details of that, and I don't want to talk about something I don't know about, but I'd be surprised if that was the case.
Okay, so everyone's has that goal in mind to protect the environment at Tesla. That's what they feel.
I mean, like that's I think that's like why a lot of people go there, and it is something that's like very like heavily reinforced in the culture of like of the work environment there.
Okay. And being at Tesla, which is a company that, does advancement for the future, where do you see our future in 10 years or 15 years or?
Well, I hope in the next like a few months that we'll see a lot of very, very notable advances in autonomous vehicles from not only Tesla but from all the players in the industry. And I think that that'll be perhaps like if we were to look at a day in the life today versus 10 years from now and walk around a city, I think that that would be one of the first things to jump out at people. As they walk around that city, not having any other background or whatever, they will see a lot of autonomous vehicles. I think that will make a huge impact. I mean, it's going to be a game changer for what the day-to-day life is for a lot of people. What jobs are like, what people are doing in their spare time, where people are living. All these things will hugely change because of changes in transportation. And that doesn't just include autonomous cars. It also means trucks, buses, like probably a huge extension of the infrastructure in the United States to improve our rail systems and things. So I think transportation will be a huge game changer. And then outside of that, other technologies that I see that are really like shaping the way that the next 10 years will form are virtual reality. That will be definitely like a huge game changer for how people spend their free time. And then outside of that, I don't know. Like maybe people will
Go to Mars.
maybe we'll get to Mars. I am not as convinced by that, but I hope to see a more health and environmentally concerned population, which is sort of a trend that I'm noticing now, but I hope it really takes root and that becomes more and more important in the future. But outside of those things, I don't have any like grand ideas for what the future will look like 10 years from now, but I hope that I'm positioning myself well to inform that, And I'm sure you feel the same way. You want to be in a position where you can be shaping the future, not just letting it happen
exactly.
to you,
Yeah, I feel like people should know more about the environment first in order to protect it. Like education is the foremost goal, so to say.
Yeah,
I can see.
But also, just like don't throw garbage on the road.
Yeah.
Like, also just don't be a jerk.
Okay, now some general question. What are some moments that really inspired you? Like you felt really inspired in your life?
Oh,
like
goodness.
You felt that shaped you?
Sure. So I was not particularly academically inclined when I was in college and in high school. I just didn't feel I didn't really try particularly hard, and I slid by, did okay, but then when I was in college, I met a handful of people, all of them very, very good friends of mine now, who were just achieving so much more than me. They were working harder in classes. They were doing more projects on the side. They were like just on all like academic fields. They were doing more than me. And again, I wasn't doing badly, but I was just not pushing myself. And so seeing these people achieve so much in their academics, in their extracurricular projects, in their just interests in what they do in their spare time, instead of like sitting down watching Netflix, they'd be like reading a book or like working on a side project or like meeting new people or like just doing something. And so this group of friends, really the names are Brandon Wilson, Jake Ward, and Sam Root. Meeting those three people was a sort of pivotal thing for me when I was in my sophomore year of college, and I attribute a lot of the success and a lot of my ambition to knowing them. So I guess maybe it's not a particular thing, but just a set of people.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. I feel like a lot of people could benefit from the use of, mentors that could shape their decisions.
It's not only a matter of mentors. Like all these people were, my peers in school, but just having people who are pushing around you makes you ask yourself the question, why aren't you pushing as well? And these people absolutely did that for me, and I think that if you find someone like this, you should kind of hang out with them. You should like try to learn everything you can from them. And so that's been like one of the biggest things for me professionally. Just like meeting these people and then getting off my ass and doing some stuff.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And now you're doing a lot of stuff, so
doing some things.
Did you keep in touch with them?
Yeah. Actually, after undergrad, we all went to school in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
All three of us moved to California together, or all four of us actually moved to California together, and some of them are still working in the Bay Area. We sort of split up a little bit after that, but when I moved to Boston, 1 year after I moved there, my buddy Sam moved there as well, and so we all definitely keep in touch. And we are kind of spread throughout the country at the moment, but we get together for the important things.
I see. It's very nice. And what are your plans for the future?
My plans. So
Yes.
hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years, I'll finish my PhD. After that, I'll take a very long vacation. It will be delightful. And then,
Like 2 weeks.
oh, no, no. Maybe I'll take a 3 month long vacation. Like just do something like really out there. Um, and so after my PhD, I'll take this long vacation, travel a whole bunch, and then ideally what I'll do is work at an autonomous vehicles company, um, ideally as a software engineer or just a software engineer, working on problems in planning and control, perception or planning and control. I think those are the areas I'm most interested in. And then a little bit longer term than that, I'd like to move into a position where I'm doing some sort of software architecture, where I'm shaping the way in which software is developed for a company or a product. And that's kind of my like longer term goal, being more on the product side, on the like how do we implement this, how do we like develop this idea, as opposed to like writing for loops perhaps.
And then so that people can spend less time on writing the code and more time with thinking about the problems. Is
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. I think that the interesting part of coding is not like struggling with syntax, but rather it is figuring out a creative way to solve a problem. And so that if I can like add more of that into my day to day, and then also go a step further and say, how is like the solution that I've developed, how's it impacting the customer? How's it impacting the person who's using that product? So not only consider technical things, but also consider like the externalities, the way in which my technology will influence the world. I think that those are sort of more interesting topics that I hope to access in my future.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to share? Some general advice for people who are just starting to code?
Um, yeah, so I think for anyone who's just starting to code, I recommend do as many projects as you can. Start them out early, make them make them always something that will teach you something. Always have something that you'll gain from the projects that you're working on, and keep track of these things. Like display them, show them to people, talk to people about them, because that is how you'll build your understanding. You'll learn from others through these conversations, and that's how you'll become good at what you do and actually maybe figure out what you want to be doing. So get out there and do it.
Yeah, we have a Facebook group. The link is in the description where you can join and show your projects to the people on the group who share the same passions with you. So just saying.
So that's a great idea.
Cool. So thanks again for being here. It's been amazing learning from your experience. And for all of you guys watching, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and like this video and tell your friends about it if you have friends who are just learning to code. And until the next time, bye.